Yeah, this is what they want. They want to see hitters. They want to see trap stars. They want to see robbers. They want to see killers.
Off the record, powered by Amadeus.
They just want to see me and my niggas.
OTR's in the building. Let's do this. OTR.
Yeah, this is what they want. They want to see hitters. They want to see trap stars. They want to see robbers. They want to see killers.
Off
They
the
just want
record,
to see
powered by
me and my
Amadeus.
niggas. How we living? Hey.
All right, we're back. OTR, another episode. Listeners, thank you so much. Thank you for giving us your ears. We're back with another episode, Warren. This one is about education. More specifically, education and its impact on marginalized and low-income communities. Education for people like us, people like us. So yeah, we're back with the next one, Warren. Introduce yourself, let these guys know who we are and why we're here.
You guys already know what it is. My name is Warren G. You're listening to the boy College. This is OTR. Voices from the inside out, powered by Amadeus. Talk to him, College. Let him know what's going on.
All right. Education, man. This one's deep. This one kind of hits close to home for me, because I've had a lot of bad run-ins with education. But before I start talking about me, because I'm always talking about myself. And Warren, we could just throw a couple of them out there, but I want to know, like, what do you think are some of the challenges with the education system today? And you can list some of the challenges from back in the day when you were in school. Some of those might have changed today, and some of those might still be there.
Right.
Give me a couple. What do you think?
Some of the challenges that I face that I do not know if they're still prevalent today, but I have a sneaking suspicion that they are, range from the lack of representation in the schools. When I was in school, there was literally like one other black teacher in the school, and all the rest of the teachers were white. I think there was like one Filipino teacher, but like the majority of the school body, the population of the students were children of color, not just black. Black, brown, Filipino. My community was very multicultural, but the teachers, the people of authority, they were all white people, and there was a disconnect there. Obviously, I'm saying that was a big challenge.
For sure.
I don't want to keep listing. How about you tell me what for you? What was another challenge for you in regards to the education system? For me, what hit close to home was, I would say, like, being in a low-income family. I didn't have enough time or the resources to really engage into school, nor did I really have the support. Not to say that my mother wasn't there to support me, but she didn't have the capacity to do so at the time. Another thing was just the labeling, labeling students as bad or intelligent. Me migrating here to Canada, right off the bat, I was already labeled as not up to par with their education system, which, man, the words I had for them with that, like, what their education system was nothing compared to the education system I was coming from. I was definitely advanced. But that was their opinion. A couple other things I could throw out there would be low-income, communities not really having a voice in the curriculum of their children. If you look at a private school, the parents they actually do have a voice in the curriculum and what their kids are studying, what they're not studying, because they could say shit like, if this isn't working for my child, or if I don't think that this is the curriculum, this curriculum is right for my child, I'm not funding your school anymore. I'm gonna pull my kid out and take my money with me and go elsewhere. So they do have a bigger voice, and our communities, we don't. But also, just the schools, the funding and all of that stuff, not having proper resources or equipment or programs, as opposed to other schools in better communities. And I know you could probably relate to that, because you went to what school did you go to? Because you grew up in Vern, right? I grew up in the Vern, so I went to Sacred Heart as an elementary school, and then I went to Pope
for high school. Pope John Paul II. Shout out to the Pope alumni. You already know what it is. Panther Pride. But to answer your question, lack of equipment, lack of school materials. I didn't know what we lacked while I was going through it. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, I just thought that's what everybody was had access to. It wasn't until I was well into my adulthood and I started speaking to people from different communities, different walks of life, who went to schools in more affluent neighborhoods. I wasn't until then I realized that they had a different experience than I had. Like their school trips were a lot better. Their the things that they did in school, like their gym activities or their science projects, or the things they're allowed to do in certain classes. Like we didn't have access to that kind of thing, And again, when I was a kid going through it, I didn't see it. I just thought this is what everybody has, But now looking at it from the outside looking in, yeah, people in my community were definitely shorthanded. But the good thing about it though, like I don't want to make it seem like the education system failed. It did fail a lot of people, but there's so many success stories from my neighborhood. Tell me about your experiences in Mississauga. Like, was it the same thing for you?
Honestly, the schools in Mississauga weren't bad. I like you said, going through it at the time, I didn't know what an underfunded and overfunded school was. Right. And even when I was in school for the elementary years, I didn't really know what a private school was. So for me, I would say that for me, it's just I migrated here at a young age, and when I first migrated here, back home in St. Vincent, I was 5 or 6 years old, but I was doing like multiplication, division, things like that. You know what I mean? And then when I got here, the age I was at, I was supposed to be in kindergarten. They decided to hold me back to junior kindergarten, which to me made no fucking sense because it's kindergarten regardless. You know what I mean? So why hold me back in kindergarten? But whatever, I guess that's just what they wanted to do. But for me, there wasn't a proper channel or even like a form of testing to see where my level of education was at. It was just like, okay, you came from this place, so you're not up to par. There was nothing there, because I'm pretty sure if there was some sort of, test that could determine my level of education, they probably would have bumped me up to grade 1 or grade 2. You know what I mean? So that wasn't there for me. And at the same time, my mom, which was the more supportive one at the time. My dad was around, but he was still doing his thing. My mom knew nothing about Canada. She knew nothing about the education system. She knew nothing. You know what I mean? She came where she came from. Like she went to work. I'm pretty sure she finished school back home. I'm not even sure, but she knew nothing of this culture. So she wasn't able to advocate for me. It was kind of like, just go to school and do what the teachers tell you to do. You know what I mean? Moving forward into school, I kind of went backwards, I would say, because like I said, I came from doing multiplications and stuff, and here I am learning how to color in between the lines, taking naps, having snack time. Fuck, I didn't go through that shit in school. You know what I mean? In school back home, if I got an answer wrong, I got lashes from the teacher. You know what I mean? Yeah, right. And so even coming up here and going to school, everything was so different. And then being so different isolated me even more because I had an accent and I looked different and I did things different. It wasn't really comfortable for me because kids are mean. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the only thing that I had going for me in elementary school and stuff like that was my athleticism. I was fast,
Okay.
right? So I started gaining popularity because I could play sports and because I could run fast and things like that.
Right.
And then, going into middle school, it was rough because, again, growing up, I didn't have that support because my parents didn't have the capacity to give me much of an educational support and to learn how important it is to invest into my education. I was getting into things, I was on road doing things, doing whatever. So in middle school now, like, I was one of the cool kids, quote unquote. So I did cool kids things. And there was a time when the principal, he pretty much failed 7 of us. He held us all back a grade. He had no right to do that at all. Growing up now, being an adult and looking at the education system, he had no right to do that, but he did it. And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to hold you guys back a grade because you guys are all bad. And when you guys start to behave yourself," so this was grade 7 and 8. So when we were to be in grade 8 now, he held us all back and said, "Oh, if we don't get into any trouble and we do all the work and all this stuff in the first 3 months, he'll throw us back up into the grades that we're supposed to be." And I was one of the last 2. And I went through a really, really rough situation with that school. And my mom ended up taking me out of that school before that could happen. So when she took me out, I was registered as grade 7. So when I moved to another school in Mississauga, they put me in grade 7. So I was held back twice, to be honest. And that was pretty rough for me because my experience with education was not good at all. And it's kind of fucked up because my teacher in St. Vincent, I still remember her face. I still remember her hair. We were almost best friends. You know what I mean? I loved my teacher, and I felt like my teacher cared about me because she interacted with me. She interacted with my mother. I come up here, and all they want to do is hold me back. So yeah, my education experience wasn't good at all. And then getting into the teenager years with high school and things like that, I could talk for days about this, but I ended up dropping out of high school. I didn't graduate grade 9. So to this day, I'm ashamed to say this, but also proud at the same time because I've come a long way and no one can actually tell. But I'm a grade 8 graduate. I have 3 credits of high school, and that's it. I attempted to, when I was getting sentenced to do that same bid that I spoke about in the last episode where my baby mom's was pregnant and whatnot. I had gotten into school. I had gotten into to an adult school, and I was gonna make another attempt to pursue which would have been my, I think, second attempt to pursue my high school diploma. And I was doing pretty good. I already went through the testing phases to see what level I was at. And then I started, getting into the work and stuff like that. And I had a really good teacher. She was supportive. And she knew my situation with the courts. And she even wrote a letter to support my lawyer and I's request for a conditional sentence in order for me to continue schooling, just because of how rough of an experience I had with school. And so when we presented that to the judge, he said that he commends me on making that, taking the initiative and getting back into school and starting the process of my rehabilitation, as he said. But he finds it more fitting that I serve the time for my crime, and then when I get released, I can then pursue school again, which was fucked up too, right? Excuse my language. But that's what happened to me. And to be honest with you, that was the last time I attempted my high school diploma, and never felt the energy or motivation to do it again after that. I pretty much went through almost all of these I would say challenges one would face regarding education, low income, being labeled, just not having the supports or the resources and things like that. I even went through the counselor at school
trying to take me away from my home. He wanted to put me into child services. And if I wasn't smart enough, I probably would have been. But I started to figure out, like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I thought he was trying to help me with certain things because he was asking about home and stuff like that. So when I was like, oh, you know what, I when I get home, my mom goes to school, night school, and she works, so I have to take care of my sisters and do this and do that. And he's like, oh, so where's your time? When do you get to go outside with your friends, or when do you get to do your homework and whatever? And I'm like, well, I don't really get a chance to. That's just how it works at home. And I thought he was trying to help me out, but he was actually trying to fucking take me away from my mom. Right. And I went through that process. And that was one of the reasons why my mom took me out of the school at that time. And her doing that, because we also did move, but her doing that then had me continue in grade 7 for the rest of the year. And then I forgot to mention this, my first actual criminal charge came about from the principal at that next school that I went to, because him and I had a bad relationship. I had a great relationship with my teachers, but he was like from the Navy or some shit like that, and he just had a problem with me. I don't know why, maybe because I stood up to him with certain things, but he just had a fucking problem with me. And he actually sat me down in his office and he told me, he's like, you are gutter rat and you're gonna end up in jail. What? And I'm gonna see to it.
Hold on, rewind. What? He called you a gutter rat?
He called me a gutter rat. He called me a gutter rat, and he told me that I'm gonna end up in jail, and he's gonna see to it.
Oh fuck!
So said, so done. He's the first person that slapped me with a charge.
Oh wow!
Obviously, he didn't charge me for nothing, but it was a situation where he didn't have to call the police, and he didn't have to charge me. He's a principal of an institution. He could have gotten me and the other student inside his office and our parents and deal with it that way. Why be so quick to charge a fucking 14-year-old? You know what I'm 14. Why do you want to call the police on a 14-year-old and charge him? And it wasn't even something serious. It wasn't even a fight. to tell you what it was me and a couple other kids, like we bumped into this kid that we didn't like or whatever on the way home, and he was like messing with my boy's little brother. And so we're just like, yo, like, you don't want to do that because we'll fuck you up or whatever the case is. We kind of threatened him, right? And then I put my hand over, like, around the back of his neck, and I'm like, if you touch him again, you're going to regret it for the rest of the school year. We're just going to beat you up every day. You know what I mean? And yeah, it was bullyish, I will admit, because I hate bullies and stuff like that, but we're just fucking around. You know what I mean? And he like pushed me and ran into the school yelling. So we laughed it off and we went home. Next day, fucking, I actually didn't go to school the next day. And then police called my mom, called the house and said that I'm being charged with assault. And it was a huge thing. It went through trial and everything. They even had some of my co-students come in on the stand and shit. And like, for the principal to put us through that at the age of like 14 was just ridiculous. So that's my struggles with education. I don't want to take up too much time because we do have a guest host, a very good friend of mine. We grew up together. We both went to school in Mississauga. We grew up in Mississauga. He's doing amazing things. And him and I have done a lot of work together too as well. So I'm proud to have him on the show. His name's Dave. And he's going to talk to us a little bit more about education and things like that, because he actually works at Westview. And he's doing big things in this position as well. So we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we'll have you guys listen to Dave.
You already know what it is. Voice from the inside out.
Hit us up on any one of our handles. Warren,
you already know. So hit us up on Instagram at Amadeus TO. So at Amadeus AMADEUSZTO, or you can email us at otr@amadeus.ca.
how we do at the end of the show. Here's another banger. It's called Love. It's from Jadeo. Y'all take a listen.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy Jadeo, and you're listening to Off the Record, powered by Amadeus. Now, this next track you're about to hear is called Peace and Love. This is a big tune, so I need you to turn me all the way up.
Look me deep now my eye. One time, where I do it for the vibe. 2 times, where I do it for the hype. 3 shots, make it look like me type. 4 shots, make it take in the.
You don't talk to me like you used to. Hey, yeah. Mood's gone, move on, is what you tell me now. I'm the one for my life for some peace and love is all I'm wishing. Pieces of my heart still missing. Dreaming of a love so special. Be my precious, your love's essential. Peace and love is all I'm wishing. Pieces of my heart still missing. Dreaming of a love so special. Be my precious, your love's essential.
Broke out, cause it out of my life. Now me live stress free, cause me done with the strife. Now me fix up my life, I try to live right. I find a new dawn, I try to move on. We did fight, I break up all night, we stay up. And peace I disrupt, and voice I raise up. Every time is a thing, the cheer me one fling. I try to help him to keep me from swing.
Kept you in the fire. Make me feel good, level up higher. Pull up to Happy Avenue. A place me feel blessed, a place without you. Set me on fire. Said you love me, just a big liar. Time to move forward in peace and love. Peace when me get is only from above.
You don't talk to me like you used to.